Welcome to the preaching ministry of First Cumberland Presbyterian Church of Chattanooga. This recording is simply the sermon portion of our worship service. To experience our full worship service, we encourage you and invite you to join us Sunday morning at 11 in our beautiful sanctuary located at 1505 North Moore Road.
If you are watching this before 11 a.m. on Sunday, March 24th, I want to invite you to come to this sanctuary where the combined choirs of First Cumberland Presbyterian and the McDonald Road Seventh-day Adventist Church, along with an orchestra, are going to present our Easter cantata on Palm Sunday. And then I invite you to take advantage of the other opportunities that you have throughout Holy Week. We're not going to have a sermon on Palm Sunday, but I did want to offer a reflection to help us get into Holy Week. And so here now a little reflection to perhaps prepare us for Holy Week. I drove to Chris and Sybil Topol's house this last week after Sybil agreed to come under the care of hospice. And I brought my little bag of communion elements with me, and I was going to offer to do communion with them. And as I was driving, I was thinking and praying, what do you say during a time of communion to somebody who is under the care of hospice and somebody who is caring for someone who is under the care of hospice? And as I was thinking about it, it just dawned on me. In so many ways, that is what communion is all about. And so when I arrived and then we began actually entering into that time of sharing communion together, I said something that I've never said during communion before. I said to them, taking communion is like spitting in the face of death. Because we can say to death, now there are things I can do to try to hold you off, and there are things I can do to try to hold you at arm's length, but ultimately I know you're going to win in terms of death will take me, death will take us all. And yet I know that God has the last word, and the last word is resurrection. And that resurrection, of course, comes through the death of Jesus, the very thing that we remember and we celebrate during communion. In Mark 8, halfway through his gospel, Jesus predicts his death and his resurrection. And then he says to the crowd, and I believe he's saying to us as well, if any wish to come after me, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. And obviously part of what he means is that we are to sacrifice for him and for the sake of the gospel. He's saying that there are going to be times in our lives when we have to choose to do the right thing, even when the right thing is the hard thing, and the right thing is going to cost us something. We have to follow Jesus even when the pathway goes where we don't want it to go. But this also means, I think, that we are to spit in the face of death, if you will. It means that we have to take death seriously. Pick up your cross and follow me. In 1973, anthropologist Ernest Becker wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Denial of Death. And in that book, in part, he argued that all of us, to some level, deny our deaths. That if we were completely aware of the fact that we are going to die every minute of every day, we would find it difficult even to get out of bed in the morning. And so we find ways to deny our deaths. But he says that denial of death tends to take one of at least three different forms. Many of us work our whole lives to produce some legacy that will live on after us. Other people try to find ways to dull the reality of death, often through chemicals, through drugs or alcohol. Other people, he says, tranquilize themselves with the trivial. And what he means is that we focus on little trivial things and try to make them important so that we can not pay attention to the important things, including death. None of those ultimately work to stave off our denial of death. They certainly do not work to stave off death either. And Becker said that they also are what contribute to most of the evil that happens in the world. Now, Becker might disagree, I'm not sure, but I think that following Jesus in looking death straight in the eye, this is my body broken for you, this is my blood shed for you, I'm giving my life for you. Looking death straight in the eye is a way of getting rid of that denial. It removes the denial. Denying myself means giving up any hopes of having some legacy that will last long after me and in some way that I could cheat death. Giving up or staring death in the face and being serious about death, removing that denial, means that I won't have to try to dull its impact with drugs or alcohol. And it means that I want a focus on the trivial in order to ignore the important. I think Holy Week is a week in which we are invited to go with Jesus and to stare down death. You know, Jesus refuses to allow Peter to use a sword in order to protect him, to defend him, to keep death at bay. Jesus accepts that he's going to die, and die a horrible death, in fact. But he spits in death's face by telling the disciples that my body and my blood are broken for you, and I want you to remember me every time you do this. And then he says that every time you eat the bread and drink from the cup, you're going to proclaim my death until I come again. You're going to remember not only my death, but my resurrection. Jesus spits in death's face when he says to Pilate and to death that no one's taking my life from me. I am laying my life out and down willingly. And then when he cries from the cross, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit, he's trusting not only his life to God, but he's also trusting his death to God. I give myself to you, O God, and I trust that even though I die, you will raise me from death, and that by my resurrection, I will be able to offer resurrection to all. So one way of looking at taking up your cross is that Jesus is telling us that whether we admit it or not, we are going to die, so we may as well admit it. In his poem, Dylan Thomas encourages his father, and I suppose us as well, to rage against the dying of the night. Do not go gentle into that good night. And if we're talking about resisting death or spitting at death in the face or whatever, that's one way to resist death. But if he is saying that we should fight and struggle until our very last breath and do everything we can to prolong our lives, then I think he's missing the point. Instead, we can pray like Jesus. Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. Into your hands I give my life. Knowing that I will die, I am giving myself unto you. And so this Holy Week, contemplate some your own death. Let go of your illusions and your denial, and then take up your cross, your death, and follow Jesus. Amen.
Thank you for joining us for this message from the preaching ministry of First Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Once more, we hope you'll join us in person Sunday at 11 a.m. for worship.